Greetings and welcome to Berea College's Convocation program. Tonight we have a very special guest, Karim Nagi. Karim Nagi hails from Egypt and teaches Americans and others about the beauty and wonder of Arab music and culture. Karim's been to Berea College before. He performed a convo for us about 5 years ago and did an excellent job and people loved it. Karim is on a mission to try to disband and disprove negative stereotypes about Arabs and Arabic culture. He's an accomplished musician. He's released over 14 CDs, numbers of instructional videos and DVDs for learning Arabic instruments and dance. He's held workshops and seminars and lectures all over the world and across the United States. He's lectured and presented in Harvard University, MIT, Princeton University, and did I mention Berea College? And Stanford University, just to name a few. Also, he was recently named a member of the board for the Chamber Music of America. You should check out his website, karimnagi.com, karimnagi.com. But I don't want to take up all the time because we'd like to hear from him. So now please welcome Karim Nagi.
The Rick has been my best friend for my entire life. Together, we've been making music and fighting stereotypes for over 4 decades. And you know, a best friend should be diplomatic. They should listen to you, talk to you, encourage you, and make you feel important, make you feel that you matter. But a best friend should also disrupt you and challenge you and make you reevaluate your actions sometimes. So the Rick, it surprises people. Unlike the preconception of the tambourine as this amateur accessory instrument, maybe played like this or some kind of simple way, but no, this is the Arab classical tambourine. It's made with the skin of a fish and the mother of pearl, brass cymbals, fine and thin, like the Arabic word riq denotes, and it's capable of making these filigree level phrases such as dooms, steks, steks, dooms, stocks, stooms, steks, stek, dooms, stocks, stoom, Now, Rick is my tool for the craft of music. Music is our tool for diplomacy and disruption. Diplomacy and disruption. So I help advocate and give visibility to Arabs. These are my people that are often misunderstood and even vilified, seen, portrayed in movies, these sultanic, exotic, fanciful farces, or in the news as irrational and dangerous fanatics. So diplomacy, well, it creates the dialogue. So Rick would help me make people curious. Perhaps someone would be intrigued by the technique of the fingers, or perhaps they would be captured by the music, maybe even feel the rhythm in their body. Maybe it's like this, hey, huh, or even, and this dance that it could inspire in people, well, that dance and the feeling of the rhythm, this is a participation with us. They're getting to know us. They're becoming familiar, and they are becoming comfortable, interested, feeling our music, feeling our propulsion in the body. And so this whole process of getting people on our side and interested in us creates potential future advocates and allies. So the diplomacy creates the dialogue, while disruption can interrupt the monologue. The rek is bold and startling, so jostled by this combination of sound, a person would have to stop talking and listen. And then they would take notice of the other person's statement. And this creates this moment where the rhetoric has stopped. The rhetoric has stopped, so this moment where people can reevaluate, reassess these previous biases that we heard in the films and in the television and the news about the extremist or the genie or the refugee or the primitive person, or let's just say the other, the person we don't know that we're afraid of. So Rick has given me a tool to advocate for my people, a way to give positive visibility to my culture. Whether it's giving a college lecture just like this, or visiting public schools for children doing cultural presentations, crafts and music and dance for children, or recording music, making instructional videos, or even creating a play or theater or dance performance. All of this has helped to disrupt the stereotypes. All of this is so that I can try and diplomatically dissuade xenophobia. So thanks to Rick, I've learned this art. This is the true power and virtue of art. That's the art that creates curiosity and fosters a dialogue, but also the art that can disrupt the rhetoric and forces or inspires someone to rethink these inherited biases that they found somewhere else. So the Rick can feel the rhythm in our body, be propelled by the music, be captured, and this helps people listen past the preconceptions and pay attention to details, because in the details is the diversity and the uniqueness of the person playing the music, which all creates the potential for friendship. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, my name is Karim Nagi once again. I'm so happy to see you all in Berea one more time. It's been 5 years, and this is a difficult time to come, as you know that there are a lot of people in pain right now because of what happened to Breonna Taylor and what everybody is going through, the African Americans here in the United States that feel that their lives don't matter and that they want to be seen and heard and get the justice that they want. Just like all of us, I as an Arab or a Muslim here in the United States, I have received some prejudice, but never that amount, not to that degree. So I also have benefited from a privilege. But this act of being stereotyped and this act of being unfavored, as I just explained, is to help me be sympathetic and to be an ally for other misrepresented, for other vilified people, for other marginalized people. The idea is that we want to be heard and seen. Music, dance, this is a way to be heard and seen. This is a tool that I feel good using and that I'm comfortable with. So imagine you see the rek. Well, you would also be able to see it if it were a lot bigger. So how about something similar that's bigger? This in Egypt is called a duf. In Morocco, it's called a bendir. In the Midwest, here in Chicago, where I'm living, it's called a frame drum. Because as you know, English is a very practical language. The words used to describe something or basically say what it is, you know, like folding chair, sunroof, frame drum. This, here in Egypt, where I come from, this is the duf. We use the duf for weddings, birthday parties, sporting events, ways to help people celebrate and enjoy and come together in a bonding way. But also it's a very important instrument in that it's visual. We don't just sit there and play. There is an acrobatics to it, and that helps it be seen and experienced more, so that you're not only listening to music, but you're watching the excitement of the performer. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shadow. The duf. When we play music, we're exuding a feeling. This is the important part of Arabic music, is we have an enchantment that goes with it, an ecstasy, a feeling, which we call in Arabic tarab. And this is when we want to sing, we actually call this person a mutrib, a mutriba, the person who enchants, the person who gives this ecstatic feeling. And what better way to experience another culture than experience the people doing something with passion and ecstasy and good feeling as well. Not just a demonstration, but also to share how it feels and to share what it means to the performer, what their relationship is with the instrument, what their relationship is with the audience, and what they want to portray to the people watching. So here I am in the United States. It's not Egypt. It's not the Arab world. The Arab world is actually a very, very wide place. So when we're dealing with stereotypes about Arabs, Arabia, and all of these tropes that we find in news, movies, everything that people use to create opinions from, well, it could be treated as this one large category. Oh, but it's so diverse. We have so many countries where Arabic is the official language. So Arabic is a language, and so we are a language group. It's not necessarily an ethnicity, it's certainly not a religion also. But the countries that speak this language are in the north of Africa, Morocco, Mauritania, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Northern Sudan, Somalia, Djibouti, the island of Comoros, and then we have in the western part of Asia, Yemen, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. Do you think all of these countries are identical? Certainly not. There is no one trope that covers it all. But if you look at something like rhythm, dance, we can start to see the differences and break down these stereotypes. So the important thing is that you hear the music and that you see the activity of the people. So something that we do, not just in Egypt specifically, but the south of Egypt. We have this dance with the stick. And this is called asa, or the way we like to say it, asaya, which is a stick of rattan, a reed, solid all the way through. And when we perform with it, we're keeping a rhythm. When we hit the stick somewhere, you hear a beat. When you see the stick in the air, your eyes gravitate. And the person who is carrying the stick, who's dancing from the south of Egypt, is exuding their pride, is exuding their confidence. And so they want to be seen, not in a exhibitionist kind of way only, but also, you know, to assert where they are and their identity, because dancing is freedom. When you dance, it means that you haven't been subdued. It means that you are free. It means that you have not been captured. So let's try a little bit here. Yeah. For you, I dance with a suit. Hup. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Do you think this is difficult or hard? Here's the wonderful thing that no one would be able to tell if I'm all the way up in your cathedral convocation, but here I can show you how I spin. Pinky, ring, middle, index, forward and around, around, backwards, forward, backwards. And I love sharing things about the culture because that makes people identify with the performer more. And then us as a marginalized group, as an other person, become more familiar. When everyone is familiar with each other, they're less likely to be afraid. And they're less likely to think of things in these blanket depictions, these descriptions of stereo, where a person is coming from the Arab world or Muslim and therefore must be this, this, or this. The more details you get, the more individuals you meet, the more specific art forms you see, you begin to feel that diversity and the stereotypes become invalid. But I understand why we would use stereotypes in the beginning to help us become able to handle all the information that we get in this world, all the things that make us startled or scared. But it's not giving the people who startle or scare us the chance to advocate for themselves or the chance to represent themselves. So we must always listen to the original people and the people who identify it as the source of our information. So there's one final thing I can show you today before we start interacting, thanks to Richard and his special skills of diplomacy. there are lots of beautiful drums all over the Arab world, okay? And they come in different sizes too. I mean, here, look at this one. This is one of the smallest version of it, okay? And it's called a khishba. So this is from Iraq. And then here's the standard version. If you can imagine, this originally made from clay, the skin of a fish, the mother of pearl, just like my best friend, the Rik, if you can imagine that. Well, this one is made from recycled aluminum cans and recycled X-ray film, because the Arab world is a big desert that recycles out of necessity. This instrument, if we went to Egypt, we would call it tabla. If we go to Morocco, we would call it darabuka. If we go to Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, we call it dirbeki. And here in the United States, the very practical word where you describe something with what it looks like, goblet drum, a drum like a goblet. So if I hit the center, I have the low sound. If I hit the edge, I have the high sound. If I put my hands here, I start to make the different rhythms and the different sounds to make a phrase, to be able to speak and say something with it. Quick example. Very good. Well, if you would just listen and be overwhelmed by the sound or fascinated, that's one thing. But what if you could make these rhythms? What if I taught you how to say these rhythms using words? The words doom and tek. Here's the word doom. This low bass sound coming from the tabla, you could hear it better from here. Bass is always better from that side. And then this high sound, tek. Just want to override you. There we go, tek. So doom and tek. Well, all of you who are so rapt in attention, I will play the phrase with the hands, and then you just repeat after me with the words doom and tek what you heard. I'll even help you out for the latency. Doom, doom, tek, tek, tek. Doom, doom, tek, tek, tek. Doom, tek, 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 tek. Doom, tek, 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 tek. Doom, tek, tek, doom, 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 tek. From where I'm sitting, standing, I believe that you sound amazing. Now, with those words, you can play these rhythms from all over the Arab world. Now again, it's over 20 countries where Arabic is the official language. We can play rhythms from all these countries, and you start to feel this diversity. You start to feel the distinctions between one place and the other, and see how vast it is, and how many people have something to say, and how many subcultures are in this one beautiful global term that we're calling Arabic. Okay? Well, let's go all the way to the west. Morocco. Tek tek doom 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 tek tek doom. How about we go to Sudan? Doom tek tek doom tek doom tek tek doom tek doom tek tek doom tek doom tek tek doom tek. How about we go to Syria, a country where on the news we're just talking and feeling all the time about refugees and civil war. Well, let's hear some rhythm from Syria, okay? How attack doom, attack doom, attack doom, attack. How about Saudi Arabia? Doom, tech 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 doom. That's lots of music and beautiful rhythm in Saudi Arabia. Doom, tech doom, tech doom, tech doom, tech. And let's end with Egypt, okay? Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being a very, very fun audience. And I really would love for you always, if you're going to get to know a culture, start with the music and start with the dance of any culture. Because in the music, we get to hear what the people have to say. And in the dance, we see what they want to represent. Because everybody wants to be heard and seen so that they feel important, so that they feel that their opinion, their existence it matters, and that their existence is valued, that we're all of equal value, and that whether we are happy or surviving or struggling, that this is important to fix or important to recognize when someone needs this kind of recognition. So please, everybody, thank you very much. I'm happy to take your questions when you're ready. Thank you. I knew it. I was here by myself the whole time. I knew it. I can perform to a screen. Richard?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. Mackenzie, can you broadcast me in? Hello, come in. If you're out there and you have a question, you can submit it in the Q&A. And we have our first question for Karim, which is the question, where did you learn how to play?
Where did I learn how to play? Well, none of my family members are musicians, or at least they shouldn't be, and I had to take private lessons. So I took my first private lessons in Egypt, and then I took private lesson in Lebanon when I went to visit, private lesson in Jordan whenever I would go to an Arab country, and then would seek out people here in the United States as well, experts from the expatriate community and from the immigrant community as well. So I had to chase this information and find it. There's no school I could go to. There was no specific one-stop source like we may be able to even find now. No DVDs, no YouTube tutorials. I had to seek these people out to take lessons from them.
So you mentioned that your family, you couldn't learn it from your family, or did your family not want you to learn it?
I think that my family were not convinced that it was a viable career at first, and they probably, well, they definitely would have preferred that I pursued something that they are more familiar with and that they could find a way to understand and support. But now that I, am independent and have a career, all of them are very supportive and actually quite intrigued on how I managed to stay happy for so many decades.
Good. Another question from an anonymous attendee is it tiring?
It's tiring to think about it. It's tiring to obsess about it, but it's not tiring to do it.
All right, great. And another question, how long have you been practicing your instruments?
Well, I would say that I try to play and practice each instrument for a certain portion of the day, but my regular practicing when I was trying to build up my technique, that's like a good 5 to 10 year process where you're trying to get to the point where whatever is in your mind, you can play it on the instrument. So, you know, to smooth out this transmission, that takes about 5 to 10 years. And then after that, it's all about, you know, creative ideas and these things. So a lot of these instruments, I don't actually like have to sit and practice so much anymore, but I still always have to work on getting ideas.
Great. Another attendee has said, great presentation. I just want to say I totally agree that you should start with music and dance.
I totally am happy that you agree with me. And I think it's just such a great way to connect with people, non-confrontational, but also there's a disruptive element to music and dance because you're imposing a sound on them, you're imposing a vision on them, so they must stop and take notice. So it's this is like what I said, it's both diplomatic, but it's also disruptive. You are demanding attention. So I love this. I love to start with music and dance, and I'm not as articulate as all of you academics, so this is what I'm using.
Another question is, when did you first get into music? I guess that's like, how old were you when you first got into it, and have you always enjoyed it?
I got into it late. I got into it at age 15, and everyone told me you're too old, you'll never learn. Or it's over, you'll never get to the skill. You should have started 15 years ago. So, you know, 30 years later, I caught up, and it doesn't really matter as much, but I started late. Did I always enjoy it? I enjoyed it before. I think there's a couple of pictures of me banging on things. They're black and white pictures. But actually, since performing and since playing, I can't say that I've always enjoyed it. No. There are times when I will not pick up an instrument. There are times when I do not want to listen to any music. There are times of sadness. There are times of depression. And then there are times of anger, too. And I don't necessarily want to make angry music or bash something. And I don't necessarily want to, you know, cry on my nice instruments either. There are many times when music is just not necessary for me.
All right. So another attendee asked, are you a third culture kid? Are you familiar with the term third culture kid?
No, I'm not.
So
I mean,
like,
I think I've heard it, but not enough to answer correctly.
I, as an American living in Egypt, have children. And so those children have American culture around them. In my household, they have Egyptian culture outside, yes. And they developed this hybrid third culture. So my kids were third culture kids.
I think my kids are going to be third or even fourth culture kids. You probably can hear them throughout this presentation.
But this relates to the next question actually is, where are you from? And I mentioned this in the intro, but maybe
yes.
people can get it.
So my family is Egyptian. We're from Egypt, and I'm an immigrant to the United States.
So you were born in Egypt?
I was born in Kuwait. My father was working in Kuwait in a hospital because he was a physician. So I was actually born there, but I don't have Kuwaiti citizenship. I had the Egyptian citizenship. Right. So, but technically I was born in Kuwait, and okay. Some people describe that as an accident.
And did you go to school in Egypt? Like, were you raised some of your youth in Egypt?
All my education is here in the United States.
Okay. Great. Okay. So another question, what let you do, I think it's supposed to say, what led you to want to do the work of helping others understand Arab culture and other cultures? What is your story?
It's a great story, or it's a great trajectory in that you start off by playing music for other people who like the music already. Like you're servicing the diaspora or servicing people for holidays and events that like the music, and so we're playing music for them and they like it. And then at some point someone asked, you know, would you come and perform in this multicultural night where we have lots of different things. And then I would go and perform in the multicultural night, where there's multiple things happening. There's an Indian performance, Chinese performance, a Mexican performance. So from that I learned that this is a way for people to get to know other cultures as well, that there's a group of people who don't only like the culture they're born in or belong to, but actually like culture in general. So that's the second step, which is reaching out to new people. And then the third step is when you notice that there are people that need reaching out to, people that are not comfortable with other cultures, that are not comfortable with certain groups of people that they have some negative association with. And that's really what became my final goal, which is using this beautiful art form to build allyship, to get advocates. Because music is so seductive, or propulsion, has this propulsion that brings people in, that this is a great diplomatic tool. So it was a three-step process: playing for people who like it, playing for people who never heard for it before, and then playing for people who don't like it. Great.
All right, another question. What is your favorite drum?
I like the rick. The rick is my best friend. That's a very, very particular speech I usually do. The rick is very important to me. I'm going to go reach for it. Here it is. And the reason I like it is because it seems so simple, but it actually is very, very complex. Mm-hmm. So this is my favorite drum. And interestingly, there are other versions of rick. Let me grab this as well. I was not able to do this at the other 5 years ago. I could not run back to my house and grab the other rick. So here is a traditional one, like I said, made of the skin of the fish, mother of pearl, brass cymbals. And then this is a more modern one with the plastic skin and metal to help with the tuning. So the one with the fish skin, when it's hot or when it's humid, it gets flat. This one, on the other hand, it stays the same tune unless I step on it or something. So it's more dependable. And I let people decide what they like. I have both, so I don't have to choose. But this is there is a difference in sound, and hopefully that gets translated. And then this one. So those are the two different ones. I use this, the rick, as an example when I go and perform in elementary schools where I do the Arabic presentation. It's called Arabica. It's a morning assembly in public schools. I've been to over 400 schools now. And I ask them to choose. And then I ask the adults, the teachers, to choose. So when I ask the children to choose, they're like, ooh, fish. And then when I ask the adults to choose, they're like, ooh, plastic. So I don't have to choose. I have both. This is my favorite drum. It's the rick, the tambourine.
Which ties into the next question. Maybe you've already answered it. Is what is your favorite instrument and why?
The rick is my favorite instrument. I have a lot. I love music. I love experimenting with instruments that I don't know. I mean, you can see here I have everything on the walls. Like I have an Indian Detour, I have Turkmenistan Dombra, I have a fretless cigar box guitar with an Egyptian license plate on it. I have tambourines. I love music, but I also know at this stage of life that you just can't master everything, and so the rick, the tambourine, is still my favorite instrument.
Great. And this question in from Jamar. Hey, Jamar. Thanks for chiming in. And any History 270 student who hasn't asked a question yet, you better ask a question in the chat, by the way. But Jamar asks, how much influence did the Ottoman Empire have on the music of countries in North Africa and the Middle East?
A lot of influence. It was, the Ottoman Empire was all-encompassing for a while. It did not have a strong hold in Morocco and the far western part of North Africa as it did in what we call the Levant or Egypt. But so there is a big connection, and a lot of the music has overlap, and there are plenty of people who will try and dissect which phrase and which instrument and which aesthetic came from the Turkish side of the Ottoman Empire versus its subjects in the Arab world. A lot of people can debate that, but it definitely is a big confluence of culture.
Great, thank you. And there's several, I'm not going to read them all because there's many of them that are just basically thanking you for the amazing presentation and praising you and saying all kinds of nice things.
Thank you.
And at this juncture,
please read each of those. No, never mind. Never.
Thank you. Amazing
presentation.
presentation.
I'm just used to my kids telling me that I didn't cook it correctly. You know, so
Right.
I'm looking for praise.
Well, one person told me that when I was introducing you and I mentioned your website, and I meant to say it's karimnagi.com, and I said Berea
Nagi. That's because I'm part of your family. This is actually a
Your diplomacy has worked so well that it screwed me up. And I said Berea Nagi. I meant, yes. So for everybody out there, let me just do this real quick. It's karimnagi.com, and
Karim. Yeah, there it is.
You can see my screen as I'm talking. Above my head is this website, karimnagi.com.
Yes.
All right. Another question. Yes. Is there traditional clothing when playing the instrument during performances?
There are a lot of performers nowadays who are performing in Western clothing. I'm performing today in Western clothing because you're such a prestigious university, higher education facility. But there's a lot of traditional costume and traditional outfitry that I also have and use in my performances a lot. Usually when I have more stage space, because some of them are pretty big. For those of you who are looking at Professor Richard, and behind him, you can actually see some example of the Egyptian costumery. That's actually what they call the tanura, a skirt, but it's for the darwish, the whirlers that also are a sect of Muslim that dance and play music a lot, which have influenced me. These colorful costumes are found all over the Arab world. The pattern that you see on those skirts is similar to a lot of the fabric here I have on my walls, which is called khayameya, tent fabric. So yes, we do have many, many beautiful costumes, much traditional clothing, but we're also, we like a good blazer and a good pantsuit.
Good. All right. Another question. Well, there's another, thank you for the wonderful presentation. So fun, so exciting, makes me want to watch much more live performances and learn what I can. Truly appreciate it. Great job. Smiley face. And another question, are there examples that stand out to you of attempts to suppress a cultural minority by restricting music and dance?
Endless examples. And from a strategic point of view, that is the best way to destroy a culture, is to destroy, take away their language, take away their celebrations, their rituals. This is how this is a way to suppress, by homogenizing a culture. And there are examples of this all over, all over the world historically, and unfortunately even today. This is why I believe that dancing is a very, very important way, in addition to music, but dancing, because it's an act of the body, so it's an expression of freedom, that if you can dance, it means you have not been caged, you have not been subdued, they have not taken everything away from you. Because the colonizer, the first thing that they would do is they would remove your forms of expression, where you would feel that you are an individual and that you have something to retain, because they wouldn't want you to retain your culture and individuality. They would want you to become part of the fold, either as a laborer or just melt into the pot, so to speak. So absolutely, in order to keep your culture alive, you need to dance, you need to move, you need to make music and speak your language. And food is also important.
Great. So there's a question, I think this question was actually asked in the chat or in the Q&A before you talked about the instruments on your wall, because it asked for you to tell us about the instruments on the wall, but I believe you've already done that.
Sure. So I have this big round circle is a duf, but it's called daf. It's from Iran. It's Persian. The one with the white skin is actually a Chinese tambourine, but I love it. I mean, it makes amazing music. A lot of little tambourines everywhere. And then I have this is a dotar, which is actually from northeast India, Assam, where my wife's family is from. And then I have this kind of like travel guitar thing that I defretted. And then I have a dombra, which is from Kazakhstan. I might have said a different country, but it's Kazakhstan. And then I have these these fretless cigar box guitars that I have people make for me as well.
So there's another question. Do you compose your own music?
Yes, I do. I've composed instrumental music. I've composed music with lyrics in English and in Arabic. And what I did last year was I compiled all of my compositions, and I wrote a play. I wrote a script for a play that had all of my lyrical songs inside the play, and then I performed them in this 195-minute performance called the Detour Guide, where I do something similar to what I'm doing here, which is I take people on a tour of the Arab world, an alternative tour where they experience working class people, where they experience music and dance and political ideas that they wouldn't be exposed to in America, all in the form of music and verse. So yes, I do compose, and I should have composed something during the quarantine with these 6 months. I should have made a lot of music, which I saw a lot of my friends are doing, but I have 2 small children, and so I was just taking care of them the whole time. But I have a lot more songs in my mind as soon as I get a moment.
Great. So there's lots of questions about other questions about the instruments on your wall, but again, you've gone over those. There's requests for you to keep playing. There's requests for you to play every instrument on your wall. Here's another question. What are some celebrations/events in which Arabic music would be played? Are there any religious music examples you could show us?
Yes, I was just working on this with a vocal group yesterday, and there is music in the Muslim world, and a lot of people have wondered. It seems like, it's a very strict religion. Are you allowed to sing? And then there's even talk within the Muslim world about that music is forbidden somehow, but usually what they're referring to is the behavior of musicians, because the music itself, if it's not shameful, then it's quite celebrated. And there are a lot of songs in the Islamic tradition as well. A very, very famous one. This song actually has its own Wikipedia page. It's so famous. It's called طلع بدر علينا طلع البدر علينا من ثنية الوداع وجب الشكر علينا مدى لله دعا طلع البدر علينا من ثنية الوداع وجب الشكر علينا مدى
Azim.
Number 1 Muslim song of all time.
All right. There's another question. Are there any certain instruments that are more commonly played depending on whether the musician is a female or male, a man or a woman?
So there is no gender specification for any of these instruments, and I've heard men and women play all of them, including singing. So no, there isn't a female instrument out there. But for those of you who study Arabic, you know that actually some of these instruments are men and some are women, because the Arabic is a gendered language like Italian and Spanish. So it's not that a man or a woman has to play it, but riq is masculine, tabla, the drum, is feminine. So some instruments have a gender from their name, but there's no regulation for which gender plays them.
Okay, great. How significant is music to Indigenous and Islamic celebrations?
Well, your lovely wife and myself come from the country of Egypt, where in the holy month of Ramadan, Egypt is especially known for having lots of music during Ramadan, especially in the evenings after people break their fast and take a little nap and go and enjoy music. And this is a very important part of Egyptian culture. It's a very important part of Moroccan culture and Syrian culture as well. there's an intersection between folkloric life and regular life and religious life, because religion is practiced by people, and people have their traditions as well, and it's and the two intertwine. So not every religious thing you do is religious, and not every secular thing you do is without religion. They're intertwined. So the answer is yes. Especially in Egypt, there's lots of celebrational music during the holy month of Ramadan, done by the general public.
In fact, the picture that's my background here is,
Yes.
as Karim mentioned, this is a show that happens in a 15th century structure in Cairo,
Yes.
with these tanura spinning, quote, whirling dervishes,
Yes.
and in the background you see drummers and musicians, and they're doing
Yes.
a worship type of dance. It's made for,
Yes.
it's adjusted for stage, but it's basically kind of a Sufi mystical type of dance.
That's absolutely right. The word dervish, which we'd call in Arabic darwish, plural darrawish, which actually has meaning of, it's like a renunciant. It doesn't mean whirler, but it means, you know, somebody who is renounced earthly needs or possessions and is devoting themselves to a type of spiritual life. And music and dance is a big part of that Sufi tradition, which is the sect of Islam, one of the three major sects of Islam.
There's people seem to be fascinated with your wall, Karim. So there's a question about the hand.
I have a washing machine too, and you know, there's a lot of
Take
stuff
us
on
in
my
the kitchen
fridge.
for a while. Someone's curious about the hand of Fatima on, I think it's on one of the doofs on your wall.
Yeah,
and
that one's hard to get down, but I'll grab a easier one. Hold on.
it's okay. I mean, the question, you don't really need to get it down, but okay. So the question is, it's displayed on the wall with the fingers facing up, down.
Yes.
And somehow this question person asked, are they supposed to be always up rather than down? Or is there a certain way that evil eye or the hand of Fatima is supposed to be orientated?
I love talking about this. I'm going to restrain my enthusiasm. Basically, up or down is possible. The hand of Fatima is meant to sort of dissuade is a good word, this act called hasad, which means envy of other people. And so the evil eye, which is actually that English phrase, in Arabic, as I've been told, and I'm not a religious scholar, but as I've been told, it's actually called al-ayn iblis. So it's the devil's eye, as opposed to evil's eye. So more specifically, iblis, which is the devil's eye, iblis. And so the hand is to block that eye. But the hand of Fatima is not just, you know, protect you against the evil of others. It's also to remind you as a person to not invoke envy in other people, to be humble, and to not cause people to be jealous of you, to not brag. You know, don't eat food on a bus. You know, this kind of stuff. You know, don't talk to someone who's never left the country about all the places you've been to. You know, to be humble, because if you notice, the thumbs are on both sides. That means you don't know if it's a right hand or a left hand, and therefore you don't know if it's facing you or facing the other person. So it's to stop this exchange of envy. This is how I've grown to know it. You know, from so many explanations and so many interviews, is that it is to dissuade envy.
Another question, a person, first of all, thanking you so much for the presentation. It was great, exclamation part. How have you used music and dance to create visibility and advocate for your culture?
Oh, yes. Basically, you know, things like exactly what I'm doing now, to give people an experience of the Arab culture, as opposed to an experience of the politics, as opposed to divisive rhetoric and things that make people have to take a side. So the music and the dance, they're inclusive acts that help someone identify with a performer and identify with a culture, because it's something that they themselves enjoy and can relate to. Even if they don't relate to that exact version of it, they relate to the act. So I use music and dance because it's inclusive.
Okay, great. Thank you. And another question, which culture in the Middle East music is your favorite to play?
I can never not say Egypt. You know, we're such proud people, and,
Right.
there's plenty of reason to love Egypt. It doesn't even have to be, what is that called, chauvinistic of any kind. But I also love Syrian music, and I have a lot of exposure to the Syrian vocal tradition of Anashid, which is religious singing. A lot of exposure to that. So I love also Palestinian music for line dance. It's called dubki, the stomping dance. I love this kind of music. So I would say Egypt is number one because of my upbringing, but also other countries like Syria, Palestine have a music that I've loved a lot as well.
Do you have, this is not a question in the Q&A, but I'm just wondering if you have a mizmar around that you can blow on.
I do. Mizmar is not the kind of instrument that you whip out of a drawer and play for an audience on a screen.
Gotcha.
It has to be warmed up. It has to be lubricated. You have to exercise your lungs. But I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Let's see here. There it is.
So as he's grabbing that, I'll just say these are very, very shrill, loud instruments used in weddings and other celebrations.
Yes. So this is a mizmar, from the Arabic word zammar, which means to honk, a horn, and it's like an oboe. The reeds you'd have to look at the back of my head for a long time for me to find those reeds. So I'm not going to find them. But if you could just imagine, they'd be placed right here.
Right.
And
it's a double. It's like an oboe. It's a double reed instrument, right?
Yes, exactly right, exactly. And then you play it. And
Okay.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that, unless someone hit you while you're doing it.
Right. And the amazing thing about this is, Karim, can you explain the circular breathing that they use?
Sure, which I can't do, but I can explain it, which is that, well, if you think of a bagpipe has a bag, and you fill the air, and then that air is pushing the horn of the bagpipe out. So the air is playing that horn, and then that air goes out at a certain amount, and it goes out slower than it comes in. So while that air of the bag that's pushing is making the music, you with your mouth are inflating that bag. So now we don't have a bag, so use our mouth. So you fill the air in your cheeks. I'm sure there are some techniques to get those cheeks supple, and then you let out less air than you take in. Where are you taking the air in from? Your nose. So you're letting the air out here, and before your cheeks get flat, you have inhaled more air. So someone who's very good at it, who's spent years and years and years playing hours and hours and hours for many, many shows, has a constant tone. And that is the physics of opening your nostrils for a quick moment.
Great. I'll just read this one last, it's not a question, it's more of a comment, but a person says, just want to say once again, so incredibly talented, and I've thoroughly enjoyed watching you perform and learning from you. Your energy and happiness is felt even through this screen. You have made me smile so much. Thank you for spreading your wonderful message with the world through music and dance.
Thank you very, very much. It's responses like that that keep me motivated. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Karim.
You're very welcome. And I would like to thank Berea College for this third invitation. This is actually the third time I'm interacting with all of you. And Tomasz for arranging all of this and being, so welcoming and generous. And thank you to the Cahill family, Neshwa and Rashid, Richard, for making the connection with your great college. And I tell everybody about you and about your mission and how, you've helped people get an education without incurring debt. I tell everybody I know about this wonderful higher education facility that you have in Kentucky. So I hope you're proud of what you're doing.
Thanks so much.
Well, I guess it's that time. Can you get me on the big screen, Mackenzie, please? So I'm gonna
You're on it.
say goodbye. Okay. Okay. Well, okay, I guess I'm on. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Karim. That was so much fun and so encouraging during these very difficult times, as you acknowledged. So thank you so much. Also to, of course, to my friend Richard, thank you, Dankeschön. And of course to Mackenzie for that amazing technical support that you provided today. And of course, thank you everyone who is still watching us right now. And so if you please join us again next week, we'll have a science convocation, same time. And so please stay safe and have a good night until we meet again. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.